We have here Luis Fonseca, which is known as the notorious Navy Cross recipient, going head-to-head with some of the top military leadership for some of the injustice that junior service members are having to deal with, as it looks like they're trying to implement some BS policies that were not going to jive well with what military culture should be appropriating for or advocating for or looking for. To give you that perspective, obviously I told you about the Navy Cross, but he has now moved on. He is retired after over 20 years of service, and now he has started this foundation, which is called No Shame Foundation. You can find it over on Facebook. That is where this video first appeared, where him and his wife Christine actually came out and kind of advocated for sailors against some of the poor leadership that is making some bad decisions. To give you guys context, and I know there's a lot of preface to this, there is something called a page 13, which is an administrative remarks paper, which could be used for really anything, just to say, I have talked to you about this, you are now held accountable to know about this policy or this issue or whatever else. We've discussed it, you officially know. So for legal documentation, if we ever have to burn you in the end for non-judicial punishment, for court-martial, for anything else, this could be held against you and actually have some kind of bearing.
So every member would be given this paper. Every member's paper would read the exact same way and require their signature afterwards. You are being advised that if your medical appointment is interfering with the performance of your assigned duties, your chain of command will not be inclined to excuse your absence from the workplace to attend future appointments unless it is for an emergency or the appointment is scheduled before 0800 for civilians, before 8 a.m. or after 15:30, so after 3:30 on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday only, unless the necessity of the appointment outside these times and days is supported in writing from the provider making the appointment.
And then so the member has to sign that, and as well, believe it or not, it has a signature for witness as the LPO, which is the leading petty officer, which at a clinic that size is going to be your E6, right? So that's what I retired at. That's what Christina retired at.
Would be your leading supervisor.
Right, your leading supervisor before you got into what we call the khaki community, the E7 community.
So now that you've seen the context of this form, you can now look and say, there was something wrong here. And this is where Luis Fonseca goes off the chains, essentially. And I can see the fire. I can see the genuine care and compassion for military members. And I have to agree with him that I'm like, I agree with this sentiment. And he says some stuff right here that I just think you guys will agree with.
Or if a chief called me in their office and said, hey, Chawan, we're going to counsel all our sailors and you need to be the signing witness as my LPO for this, I personally would tell that chief to go shove it up their ass. I'm like, fuck no. No, like, what I don't understand, honey, and now I'm getting riled up a little bit, is we're a hospital corpsman. We are the tip of the spear to advocate for healthcare, regardless of what it is. And now you're telling sailors in the healthcare community that your healthcare is not really valued, that mission will always come first and your healthcare will come second. That is exactly what, to me, this page 13 says, which is exactly what Big Navy, to me, is saying when everyone's shouting out suicide rates, mental health, working hours, poor leadership, this sucks, this sucks. And then the Navy says, oh, well, here's another new uniform for the 20th fucking time in the last, 10 years.
Now, I understand a lot of you guys here are going to say, Nick, why is this a big issue? There are clinics, there are things after hours, there are things that people could do. Your doctor might be open till 6 o'clock or whatever because they know kids have school, etc. Whatever the case may be. However, with the military health system, this is very different. And Christine actually does talk about this, and this is what she has to say.
Some civilian counterparts may not understand why we get so upset about this, because in the civilian side, from my understanding, there is some physicians that do have later appointments and weekend appointments. But in the military treatment facilities, that is not the case. The clinics on the MTFs, the military treatment facilities, are not open after hours. They are not open late hours. They are not open on the weekends. And so for this to say only if it's an emergency, I would like to break that down for you, and I'm going to use my personal experience for this. I had several medical conditions, even being in the healthcare field myself, even being a healthcare provider, that I wasn't taking seriously. And as many as you know, I'm aggressive, and I'll be my own advocate, and I will stand up for what's right. But what happens to those people who are not medically trained and are timid and will not stand up? So I personally had some medical conditions that were not taken seriously, and I had to push and push. And that ended up with me having kidney disease with end organ failure because it was ignored for so long, because I wasn't consulted to the right clinics. I, even with a cardiac condition, was still forced to run a physical readiness test when I had just come off of Limdu. My provider that wanted me to be waived from that next physical readiness test was what we call TAD. He would be back in 7 days. He told me to just hold tight for 7 days so that he can provide that exemption for me to not do that physical readiness test. And my command called me that day and told me that I would be marked UA if I did not get down there and perform it that day. And I left in an ambulance. So when you think about these cardiac conditions, but I'm not having a heart attack right now, or I have kidney disease, those are not considered emergencies. So those conditions would fall into this page 13 as I'm only allowed to go to the doctor before 8 a.m. or after 3:30 p.m. So when I call a nephrologist, which is a kidney specialist, and it's a 2-month wait, and say we're in February and they tell me, oh, our next appointment is on April 14th at 10 a.m. And I say, well, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Then the response is going to be, okay, well, then the next appointment is in May or June.
Right.
And that is how it works in, I have not encountered in 21 years, I have not encountered a military treatment facility that does not work that way, even though we have rules that are in place that are supposed to allow you to go out to civilian care if they can't see you within a certain amount of time. It doesn't happen because what they will say is, we can see her, we just can't see her during the hours that she would like.
And Luis Fonseca on this kind of goes against military leadership and says how incompetent they are, and kind of is putting the pressure on some of them to say that they should have found other ways.
And this to me is another prime example of leadership failing sailors because they don't know how to think outside the box besides mass punishment. This is exactly what that is. I'm sure it's probably 1 or 2 sailors that have various medical appointments, but this leadership can't figure out how to meet mission. I don't know why not. When I was in the Navy, especially as a young E1, E2, I always heard from my leaders that if 1 or 2 sailors makes you not meet mission, then you're ineffective as a leader because you haven't cross-trained enough. Or you haven't rolled up your sleeves and hit the decks with your sailors to make sure mission is being met.
Exactly. And the thing is if you are not healthy yourself, whether it's physically or mentally, how are you going to take care of others?
Yeah.
How am I going to sit here and tell my sailors, I cannot let you go to the doctor? I know you're sick, but it's not an emergency. So I need you to go out there and take care of these other sailors or Marines and make them feel better. But you're not afforded that opportunity.
Exactly.
Now what we're seeing after this initial 30-minute video went live and it seems to have gained traction on Facebook and other places, it seems that the leadership over at this health clinic has now finally come out and made some remarks to Luis Fonseca himself and even given a personal number to try and correct the narrative of what's happened here. And this is what they've had to say as far as that conversation.
to him via email. I just don't want it to make it seem like this was a witch hunt for anyone. We just got something brought across our desk that we thought wasn't right, and we just let our voices be heard. Actually, we let y'all's voice be heard through us, and we appreciate that. We appreciate that level of trust in us. So it says, greetings, docs. OIC here. Thank you for advocating for the team. The page 13 regarding medical appointments was not approved by proper authority, and then in parentheses it says me, and is null and void. Please stop by anytime. And the OIC gave me their personal cell phone number, and obviously I know the clinic that they're at. I won't mention those names, but just so happy to hear that sailors thought that there was something wrong. Whether they brought it through their chain of command or not, I'm not too sure, but
from my perspective looking at this, I am very saddened that this is even an idea that anybody in a chain of command would ever think of. It has been known that if you have an appointment, as long as it's valid, you can share that appointment and say, look, here's my slip, I'm going there, and that be printed out just in case there's questions on it. But that is known as your place of duty and where you have to be. And that is also why it's a big deal if you're missing appointments. And I also have to look now at the degree left or right of this situation and say, so now that this has made its way forward, maybe there was a junior person that leaked this, and you can narrow down very slowly who might have leaked it or who was the person that had it in charge. Will there be any form of reprisal as far as, vengeance against whoever might have leaked this now? And I have to also say, this document had to go to an officer in charge, a high ranking, probably O5 level or above. And that makes me now question what decisions are being made below that don't need to be made up to that level, that are kind of BS, that are being implemented, that are just like swept under the rug, that no one's actually addressing. So I hope that this is not the case for all of this, and maybe this is just a one-off thing, but I wanted to kind of share the voice and sentiment and kind of say we need to get the culture of the military corrected, and like advocating for sailors, especially if you're a medical provider or you're a corpsman or whatever else. You need to take care of yourself before you're taking care of other people, hands down. That's why we have all this resiliency training and stuff being implemented into clinics, because these are the issues that are being faced, and this is not going to help that by any means. Let me know what you think about their comments down in the comments below, and if you guys have any other topics or videos you think I should cover, hit me up over on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.